one of the things that's I think fascinating about this series for long-time comic fans is the presence of a great long-time villain, Vandal Savage.
Yeah.
We don't see his face in the trailer, but those of us who know DC know him quite well.
Yeah.
Can you talk about him and the threat he poses for this team and how he inspires them to form?
Well, Rip comes from the future with a message that is it's simple and it's sort of like it's impossible to ignore. I'm from the future. I've seen Vandal take over the world, and it's basically like, who wants to stop Hitler? And like, yeah, sure. I mean, who's going to say no to stopping Hitler? Over the course of the season, we'll realize a couple of things. One is that Rip's message is slightly more mixed and nuanced, and it's not as simple a mission, and it's once we get into the past and we try to do something which seems like simple, you go back, you strangle Hitler in his crib. Like, what could be more easy? The problem is that we're going against an immortal, in trying to stop him from his future, like, ascension to power, there's also the risk that, like, we screw up the future of the world in other ways. In time travel, you're also tempted, if you're in your own past, to try to have your own side missions. You want to sort of improve your own future. And one of the things I find interesting about the show is it's such an odd collection of people with mixed motivations. Everybody says yes for a different reason. Nobody really cares about Vandal Savage because he's going to come to power long after everyone's dead. So when everybody says yes, everybody sort of has their own secret motivation, and they're not like purely heroic ones. Clearly, with like Leonard Snart and Rory and Sarah, it's a really it's an unlikely group of people, and it's like a long road to their sort of heroism.
Well, Vandal Savage, he's going up against this team of superheroes.
Yeah.
Is he going to assemble perhaps his own Legion of Doom with a lot of baddies? And is he actually going to try to recruit maybe Captain Cold and Heatwave?
I mean, clearly there's some vulnerable members of our team who are sort of teetering on the edge of villainy. But we haven't cast Vandal. We haven't broken his story out incredibly, but from what I do know about him, he like all bad guys that I really enjoy, has a very sort of like compelling rationale, like whatever the old adage about every villain being sort of a hero of his own story. It's like Vandal is not just a wicked for the sake of wickedness guy. He has a very like compelling agenda, and in subjugating humanity and rising to sort of like his despotic rule is predicated on like actually wanting to protect the world from itself. And so I think we'll gradually get to a point, we're never going to love him, but I think we're definitely going to understand him, and I think he can be very seductive to members of our team that you might not expect.
How do you deal with the element of time travel on the show when you're connected to also Flash and Arrow? Continuity can become a big problem. So how are you planning on keeping track of all that?
It does make your head hurt. I definitely want this to be the fun version of time travel and not the sort of the version where to me, like Back to the Future as a kid was, I know that you can pick it apart in a million different reasons for why that wouldn't exist in real life, but it's so like emotionally, like the emotional logic behind it works. I think a lot of fun in this show, when you do have the Wave Rider, when you do have this ship, and you are able to glimpse into the future, through Rip's tech, it's not over. The future is unwritten, or at least it's written in pencil. And it's so you can look into the future and see everything that you screwed up and made a million times worse. And to me, the idea that you can't go back to the present, that your own personal life has somehow been altered because of something we've done, that's like so powerful. But as long as you have a time machine, it's never too late to try to erase your mistakes and write them over again.
Andrew Kreisberg earlier today described the show as being bonkers.
Bonkers,
Whereas
yeah.
the other shows are rooted, this one is kind of bonkers.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I don't know. It makes sense to me, which might mean that I'm bonkers. But like to me, these characters are so they're so like indelible that like it makes perfect sense that like they're the kind of people I want to see like at a dinner party, because like to me it would be super boring if you had like, you know, if you had like 8 versions of Superman, you know, we'd all just probably nod our heads and agree. But like the fact that like nobody on our team agrees, many people like outwardly hate one another, you know, it is the most like motley, messed up, like Dirty Dozen bunch, and like that's fun to write. Like to me, those are the, you know, when people are too perfect, I sort of get bored to death by them. But when somebody like really is dealing with like demons, and I mean we have so many different directions we can, you know, there's people that you never expected would be stuck on a spaceship together. To me, this is like it's like a bonkers version of like the real world, with the future of the world at stake. Yeah.
Very cool.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
There's so much rich history to draw from here. But you know, has there been any particular comics or arcs or eras that have helped inform it in your mind? Maybe some that you were yourself a fan of.
I mean, to me, I'm really trying to be true to the 2 shows that are launching this, and you know, I'm really grateful that they picked people who weren't Sacred Cow characters. I mean, I know some people probably hold them near and dear to their heart, and as well they should, but I think that there's enough room for us to embellish that these guys that we're not hopefully going to be pilloried and burned at the next Comic-Con for what we choose to do with them. And I feel like what, you know, Mark and Andrew and Greg did with the other shows, you know, they found that perfect balance between like honoring the gospel while at the same time like really at an emotional level like finding the sort of human beings that lurk beneath the suits.